Mysterious Oriental music, desert landscapes, bazaars, Arabian architecture, enigmatic Oriental beauties, and life in harems are already waiting for us. It is in this mysterious world that Frederick Arthur Bridgeman, an American who became the West's guide in the exotic saga of the East, will immerse us. He was called a traveling painter, and his brushes were called diplomats between cultures. In the 19th century, when Europe and America were just beginning to open the veil over the Middle East, Bridgman was the one who turned legends into canvas. His paintings are not just images, they are a dialogue between two worlds, where Western rationalism meets Eastern mysticism. Each of his paintings is a story that you want to unravel to the end. Today, when the world is becoming smaller and less mysterious, his works reveal the secrets of folk traditions and remind us that every culture is a vast universe. And right now we are going to open the first page of this epic story. Just imagine, 1847, the small town of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Here, amid the warmth of southern nights, a boy was born whose fate would forever change the way the East was perceived. Frederick Arthur Bridgeman was born on November 10th. His father was a doctor, but little Frederick was more attracted to paints and pencils than medical books. When the boy was only 3 years old, his father died. The family moved to New York, where the real story of Bridgeman began, the story of a boy who saw the world through colors and lines. In 1864, when Frederick was 17, he got a job as a draftsman at the American Banknote Company, a company that produced banknotes and financial documents. His hands were trained to reproduce the smallest lines, as if predicting a future where he would become a master of detail. At the same time, he studied at the Brooklyn Art Association and the National Academy of Design, where his work quickly attracted the attention of teachers and collectors. In 1866, at the age of 19, he took a bold step. With the support of Brooklyn patrons, the young man traveled to Paris, the artistic Mecca of his time. His first destination in France was the town of Pont-Aven in Brittany, a place where American artists gathered. There Bridgeman met Robert Wiley, who taught him important painting techniques. But his main breakthrough came in the fall of the same year, when Frederick went to Paris and entered the studio of the great Jean-Léon Gérôme, a master of the academic style and one of the leading Orientalists of his time. Gérôme was known for his impeccable command of drawing, precision of detail, and fascination with Oriental culture. Under his guidance, Bridgeman not only improved his technical skills but also began to discover the world of the East. Gérôme introduced the young artist to Orientalism, a style that idealized and romanticized the culture of the Middle East and North Africa. Bridgeman's first major success came in 1870 when he exhibited his painting A Provincial Circus at the Paris Salon. The painting received critical acclaim, and a year later it was exhibited in New York. The young artist began to attract the attention of the art world. His style, which combined academic precision and bright colors, immediately stood out among others. However, Bridgeman's true destiny was determined a little later. In 1872, he went on his first trip to North Africa. The scorching desert sun, narrow streets, aromas of spices, and bright colors of the Oriental bazaars of Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and Egypt were waiting for him. It was here that Bridgeman finally found his voice in art. But this is the story of the next episode. In 1872, Frederick Arthur Bridgeman took a step that would determine his entire career. He left comfortable Paris and traveled to a place where life was in full swing, North Africa. His companion was another American artist, Charles Sprague Pierce. 2 years of life and 300 sketches created under the scorching sun. He is not a tourist, he is a researcher. He learns Arabic words, wears a jalaba, and bargains in the bazaars to understand that the culture of the East is not a decoration, but a living organism. Art is born only where you feel the sand under your feet and the desert wind in your hair, he would later write in his book Winters in Algeria. 1873. Together with the artist Charles Pierce, Bridgman sails down the Nile to Abu Simbel, the ancient temple of Ramses II, carved into the rock. Their boat is a floating workshop. Bridgman watched people, listened to the Arabic language, inhaled the smells of spices and the heat of the desert. He didn't just paint scenes from the life of the East, he lived in those scenes. And it was here, among the ruins of the pharaohs, that he found his Mecca, a funeral procession that would become the main masterpiece of his career. The most outstanding work inspired by this trip was the painting Funeral of a Mummy on the Nile. This is a monumental painting depicting a procession accompanying a mummy on a boat along the Nile. The reflection of light on the water, the folds of fabrics, the deep sadness in the eyes of the ceremony participants, all this creates a sense of grandeur and mystery. The painting brought Bridgman real success. It was exhibited at the Salon in Paris in 1877 and later at the World Exhibition in Paris in 1878. At the same time, Bridgman received the Legion of Honor, the highest level of recognition. After this success, Bridgman returned to Africa again. In 1885, he settled in Algeria for a long time with his wife, Florence Mott Baker. There, he wrote his book Winters in Algeria, where he described his impressions of life in the Arab world, accompanying the text with numerous sketches and engravings. His studio in Paris turned into a real Oriental oasis. The walls were covered with carpets, precious fabrics, and objects from his travels. Bridgman even collected costumes and architectural fragments from the East to be able to accurately reproduce patterns and textures in his works. John Singer Sargent once said that Bridgman's studio was one of the main attractions of Paris, along with the Eiffel Tower. However, for Bridgman, the Orient was not only a visual inspiration. He saw something more in it. In the scenes of life in the bazaars, in the looks of people, in the silent majesty of the deserts, he found a reflection of human nature, the desire for life, for beauty, and for mystery. Today, Bridgman's paintings tell us stories that time cannot erase. But the most important is yet to come. What makes an artist immortal? Not the technique. Thousands of artists have it. Not the plots, they are repeated. Immortality is born where the brush becomes a bridge between worlds. And this is exactly how Bridgman worked. One of his most famous paintings was a Circassian. The painting depicts a young girl in a traditional costume with a proud and at the same time mysterious expression. Bridgman successfully combines the precision of the drawing with the softness of the brushstrokes. The fabric seems so real that you want to touch it. His attention to detail, to each folded pattern, each curve of the fabric created the effect of presence. Critics noted that Churkshenka is not just a portrait, it is a story about the fate and character of an Oriental woman. Another masterpiece is An Interesting Game. The scene depicts several men in Oriental clothing playing chess in a traditional interior. The lighting is soft, but the detail is stunning. Every fold of fabric, every ornament, and even the texture of the carpet are reproduced with jewelry-like precision. However, it is not the technique that is most striking, but the sense of calm and intimacy that this scene conveys. Bridgman seems to be spying on life without disturbing the harmony. The viewer feels like a guest, but at the same time remains an unobtrusive observer. One of Bridgman's key features is his ability to work with light. In his paintings, light becomes a separate character. He subtly conveyed the play of light and shadow, from the shining sun breaking through the arches of mosques to the flickering of candles in dark chambers. Light created volume and made the texture realistic. And it was through light that Bridgman conveyed the mood. In the paintings of bazaars and palaces, one can feel movement and energy. In the scenes of rest, calmness and thoughtfulness. What distinguished Bridgman from other Orientalists? His attention to human nature. His characters are not just exotic figures against the background of Oriental architecture. Bridgman saw them as living people with their feelings, emotions, and life stories. His women are not depicted as jewelry or symbols. They are strong, mysterious, and proud. Bridgman found something deep and real in every look, in every gesture. And that is why his works are still admired today. They give us the opportunity to see the East not through stereotypes, but through the open heart of an artist who sincerely fell in love with this world. Bridgman was not always understood by critics. His works were admired for their technical perfection, but at the same time they were controversial. Some believed that he idealized the East, creating romanticized scenes that did not reflect reality. Others saw in his paintings a sincere interest and respect for Eastern culture. His influence on Orientalist art was undeniable. Bridgman created more than 400 paintings and held several solo exhibitions in Paris, New York, and Chicago. His works were highly regarded in both Europe and America. In 1881, he presented more than 300 of his paintings in New York, an unheard-of scale for an artist of his time. His works were bought by museums and famous collectors. For example, the Speed Art Museum in Louisville, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and the Orsay in Paris. Art history is always a dialogue. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it argues. Frederick Bridgeman left us not only paintings but also questions. Is it possible to admire a foreign world without becoming its colonizer? Is Orientalism art or exploitation? His works, like a mosaic, consist of two halves: admiration for the beauty of the East and unconscious submission to its Western gaze. Today we can see in them both an aesthetic triumph and a cultural dialogue that needs to be rethought. But one thing is certain: Bridgman taught us how to see. Art doesn't die, Bridgman said. It's just waiting for someone to rediscover it. Thank you for going through this journey with us. If this story has touched you, please let it live on. Please like it to help others find this video. Subscribe to the channel that explores the art that makes your heart beat faster. And share the video with those who, like you and me, believe that every painting is a window to another world. See you in the next video.